Hello and welcome to another episode of The Reject Pile with me, Luke Edwards, as I walk in the West Berkshire countryside with my dog companion Mac. This is the last episode of a 3-episode run in autumn 2025, where we've also featured comedy writers Mike Grace and James Docherty. Don't worry though, there will be more Reject Pile next year as we return with another batch of episodes featuring comedy sketches and a sitcom. In this episode, we feature comedy writer-performer Robbie Fox and his sketch Breaking News, which was a submission to Series 3, Episode 3 of BBC Radio 4's open door comedy sketch show DMs Are Open. Robbie is a comedy writer and performer based in London, Walthamstow, born and bred, and he graduated from the Comedy Writing and Performance Southampton Solent University degree course. Robbie previously worked as a stand-up comic and character act, but now he focuses on his writing and performing, and you can hear some of that online with his recent character piece, Neuroses Journal, as well as his audio sitcom, Consummate Professionals, and you can also catch him live in his sketch comedy group, Tuxedo Cat. Helping me to perform Breaking News were Jonathan Amphlett, Rachel Cook, Alexis Coward, Ronan Hatfull, and Rob Stevenson. We'll first hear the sketch before diving into a discussion between me, Robbie, and our resident Reject Pile script editor, Phil Stewart. As ever, you can get in touch with your own rejected material or feedback and correspondence at rejectpilepod@gmail.com or at rejectpilepod on all of the usual social platforms. Thanks for listening and supporting the Reject Pile. Anything you can do to help grow it, share it with people that you think might like it, rate it, review it wherever you get your podcasts would be greatly appreciated. But for now, let's hear the sketch Breaking News by Robbie Fox. Here it comes.
Hello and welcome to News 24, the 24-hour news network service that is broadcast live to you. We're in an unprecedented time that has thrown many multimedia outlets into disarray, as the UK, if not indeed the entire world, has been shocked to not have any news stories, any new news stories for the 10th week in a row. For an outsider's perspective on this, we now go to our field reporter, Simon Bradshaw, who reports to us live from the pub. Simon?
Thank you. I'm standing here in the Pig and Whistle, and it certainly is an unprecedented occurrence. I'm surrounded here by many people who have not in the slightest been rattled by today's events. It seems that the regular exchange of money for alcohol, or indeed non-alcoholic beverages, has gone unaltered, leaving many customers moderately satiated. I spoke to one man who seemed nice. How are you finding it here in the pub today, sir?
Oh yes, it's grand. A bit funny having your camera crew here. Makes you feel very important.
Yes, does that increase your enjoyment of the day, sir?
Not really, no.
Though without a news story to discuss, we soon realised we in fact have an ordinary conversation. Then I spoke to another who was almost as nice.
Simon, you say he wasn't as nice as the first one. Was he rude at all?
No, he was not rude. He just had a generally more withdrawn demeanour about him. But he certainly did not cause any outrage or offence. It certainly does not provide any food for thought. Back to you in the studio.
Simon Bradshaw reporting there. We'll be hearing more, or perhaps less, from him later. Well, the lack of any news coverage means perhaps we can roll up our sleeves and take a punt at the sports news, if you pardon the pun, with Patricia Hughes. Patricia.
Thanks. Expression pardoned. Well, today, the truly titanic matchup between long-term rivals Southampton and Portsmouth concluded in yet another no-score draw, making that the 37th instance in a row. It has been speculated that the match did not in fact take place at all. Many others have refuted this idea, stating that they definitely thought it had, or was almost positive that the match was on and that somebody won it. which just goes to show that the true value in this game is taking part. One player, Antonio Salsaverde, had this to say.
I feel that we played well today. You know, we trained very hard. We may or may not need to train harder, but the team gave 100% as always, presumably. I'm sure we'll go on to victory, possibly, again in the near future.
Can you give us any hints as to whether any goals were scored?
Whatever. We get paid the same.
Back to you, I guess.
Wow. Tantalizing results, I'm sure you'll agree. Christ, what else is there? Weather! Yes, weather. We can now expect some legitimate coverage from our ever-reliable weather presenter, Abigail Jessup. Abigail?
Hello and welcome to the weather forecast. Well, I'm pleased to reveal that we do have some news for you, which is that the rest of the week will be nicely devoid of excessive winds, rains, clouds, sun, or even sky. We can expect the entire country to be enveloped in total darkness at least once a day. As despite the lack of news stories, the Earth has in fact continued to spin in place, orbiting around the sun, which may or may not be there. Temperatures to be anywhere between freezing and adequate, making this an excellent opportunity to make some plans for the distant future. Back to you with the local news.
Just keep talking and focus. We can't let anyone know how bad it is out there. Do your job.
Well, now, we can all take a nice sigh of relief and, the memory of all the people who have not died today will be holding a 23-hour silence.
Robbie and Phil join me now. Hello, guys.
Hey,
Hello.
Luke.
Hello. Hope you're both doing well. Thanks for joining me in the reject pile.
Here
a
we are
lovely
again.
studio.
It is. It's great, isn't it? Yeah.
So thanks for joining us, Robbie. I wondered if you'd like to start by telling us about the inspiration behind the sketch Breaking News.
Right, the Breaking News sketch started as a submission for DMs Are Open on BBC Radio Sounds, and they operate by giving out a sort of cue word each week, or a couple of them, and one of the words was breaking. And one of the first phrases that came to my mind was breaking news, and I think that there's so much that you can do with that, because just the phrase breaking news does tend to sort of heighten a sense of urgency.
What did you do with it?
So I tried to just make it as ridiculous as possible. So the breaking news is that there is no news.
Yeah.
So the news has broken, effectively.
In more ways than one.
Absolutely. And then where did you go with that?
Starting with the characters just having nothing to report on. So then reporting on, the lack of news as an event, trying to commentate over the lack of news, and keep elaborating as much as they can out of nothing.
Yeah.
And I think there is a certain amount of that already present in the news. I know, particularly when people are trying to speculate about, what's going to happen. I guess Brexit was like that for quite a long time. Before the actual vote, there was an enormous amount of speculation that ultimately didn't contribute to anything, because it then gave out a different result than everyone was expecting. But
So for you, the target was the media industry and the way that it tries to make news out of literally nothing.
I would say so, yeah, because it does extend further than news media, really. But I think the news media, given it's got such a formal and dignified front to it, I think that just makes it all the funnier. Really.
Dignified. I'm sorry, I don't often think about that when I think of certain news channels.
It depends, on the style and tone, probably. So in your first draft, it's the BBC News, right? It's 6 o'clock news, I think. Yep. I think that all came across for me in the first draft. Absolutely.
That's, I suppose, when you can be that specific, would you say that the BBC deserve a kicking as opposed to any other? Was that a deliberate choice?
It was a deliberate choice just because the BBC is the news media that I'm most familiar with. Let's see. Aside from BBC, I know it could go to something like Sky, but it's also any organisation that has a 24 news cycle. Yeah. Because I know I find that ends up tending to resort to filler. I know if there is a particularly important story going on, then they will repeat that story. But then I know a slow day at BBC News 24 has got to have a lot of very awkward tension about the place.
I'm with you. I mean, I see. Like I did last time, I'm kind of defending the thing that you want to attack and going, well, the BBC is great. And I'm a big advocate. And considering you were submitting this to the BBC themselves, was that a wise...
Is that why they rejected me, do you think?
If you'd attack something that is... Well, if you think of the channel as being somewhat left-leaning, particularly Radio 4... Would it have been, you think, more likely to be chosen if you'd attacked a more right-wing channel? Say, like, let's have a go at GB News and ridicule that. You know what I mean? So I was just thinking, in terms of being that specific, it does then lead you down certain, I don't know, assumptions that people can make about what you're trying to do with your sketch. And that's the sort of notes that I give is going, if you're going to be specific, understand that that's the consequence of that specificity can make people decide whether they want to pick the sketch or not. If you want it to be just generally news in general, then I would have either made up a fictional one or not mention the channel at all and then let the audience decide.
I suppose to follow up on that, was it important that it was BBC? It wasn't like...
Not particularly important, no.
In each case, then that brings me back to the thing I always say. If something is not important, cut it out.
Yeah.
If it's that easy to just... Then it doesn't need to be in there. And as I've said, I don't know how many times, it should... sketches are particularly an exercise in being concise.
Yeah.
Of just stripping out absolutely everything that you possibly can to make it... Yeah. To make it work.
Well, you'll see where we end up with the final draft.
Yeah.
Whether we're still in a BBC News studio.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. So what I guess, when I gave notes on the original version of the sketch, this initial idea, yes, there's nothing going on. And then I would like to see how that escalates. What is it that people do? Because in my mind, you've got several options. One is that they go to extreme lengths to try to make no news newsworthy. Or maybe they start creating news and, I don't know, starting a fight and then reporting on said fight or something like that. But the characters need to react to the situation that you set up. And so in your case, what did you think you'd like to, your development area, where did you want to go with this?
It would be the former that you mentioned just there. So I know commentating on nothing happening as if as if it's newsworthy.
Yeah.
So I know it starts off with the host as the general newsreader saying that there is nothing. Then they go to a field reporter who is saying that nothing's going on. In fact, he's in the pub. Yeah. And then going over to the sports presenter who has nothing on it. So apparently there was a match, but nothing happened.
Yeah.
And then finally the weather. And so trying to escalate it as much as possible, the weather presenter then states that there is absolutely no change in the weather. The sun hasn't even moved.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose there's two things I think of there. Is one, I'm sure you are aware that many years ago there was a no news day. Have you heard about this?
Yes, that was a segment on QI, wasn't it? So
it might have been. But
there is no news today, so here's some music.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it is a real thing that has happened.
Yeah.
And the BBC didn't try, at that time, try to make something out of nothing. So that's what... But going back to your sketch, yes, they noticed that there's nothing, but the escalation then, or the resolution, what do you think your characters are going to do about this situation? And that's what when I was looking at it, I'm going, okay, where is this going?
I'd say it's a bit like a game of hot potato, really, where I know each of them is on camera for a short time, and they have to, elaborate as much as possible. Then sort of come to the point where they're saying there is nothing happening here, so back over to you. And so then it's each person is in the spotlight.
Yeah. Yes.
And just trying to hand it over to the next person, which is more often than not the newsreader.
Absolutely. And what I'm thinking is, though, where did you think it would end? What would be the natural resolution of the situation? If it go around in an infinite circle, they just keep going back, or how did you seek? Because one of my notes was that the ultimate punchline that I had on the first draft is that I thought the punchline didn't really connect to that idea.
Well, let's for the listener, let's clarify what the punchline was of the first draft.
Have you got the script?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, we do, yes. The newsreader cuts in to say that they actually do suddenly have some actual news to say that, let's see, And the whole station has, in fact, had no input of information because of a technical fault, in this case, something being left unplugged. And the discovery of that means that the lack of news is just due to sheer incompetence. But we do indeed have some breaking news. Here, within the confines of the BBC News station, our internet supplier has ceased all activity to the studio due to a lack of payment since the cutbacks announced last week.
See, now, I did not equate that with the reason why there's been no news is because they haven't been able to collect information. I just saw it as, oh, okay, so their internet's been cut off. Or the connection is not obvious. And it also, dare I say, it doesn't explain why the weather and the person out in the sport and all of those things doesn't, although it might explain it if they were just in the studio, it doesn't make sense for the other bits. So I didn't make that logic leap, which is why my note was, I don't see how that connects with the logic of the sketch, which is this idea of, no news. Now you've explained it to me that the idea is that their lack of internet now is the cause of it all. I can understand that that's sort of a punchline.
And I can relate to that. I think I had the same experience as you. And it wasn't until the way you delivered that just now is exactly how you delivered it when you sent in the recording to me. And then the penny drops. It's like it's so important, the delivery of that pause and then the this for one reason or another that doesn't come across on reading it.
I think one of the things that we've talked about before is that it's got to be clear on the page for the reader to be able to get it to the stage where performers get to perform it. And in the same way that the actors, when they read the script, they've got to understand what's going on and not have you in the room explain it to them, if you see what I mean. I mean, though it's helpful, it's got to pass all those barriers first. Now, if we didn't get it, it's good chance that the same reaction to, the people over at the M's didn't understand that link. So, but I'm sure a small, adjustment in the dialogue might have made that connection more obvious.
Yeah, I think so too.
In your notes, Phil, you touch on escalation. You say there's some escalation where we introduce like the heat death idea in the weather presenter, and then that, I mean, I don't know, Robbie, do you want to build on that? That feels like that maybe that wasn't a major element of draft one, but then it started to be more. Was it more of a thing in the second draft?
Yeah, in the second version, there is a different payoff to the whole thing, where there's an extra character who appears very, very briefly, and also the second version is at least written to have visuals with it. But
is the visual version the one that you recorded?
Yeah, this one that we've got down here. There is a third draft which we do not have printed here, which, to be fair, was written a while ago, so it might not be front of mind. So what I'm talking about there is, I mean, it's kind of similar. The second draft still has the internet supply being cut off, and the presenter references cutbacks, and then the weather presenter jumps on that and is like, "Wait a second, cutbacks," and it's. And it's kind of the newsreader responds to that. It's like, don't worry, or don't speculate, or something like that. So it's that second draft punchline is still around the cutbacks and the internet signal and the information flowing into the station not being there. But then the third draft,
you do something different.
Produced is, as you were just saying, the new character who's not in the first and second draft.
I'm very interested to find out where you go with it, really, because I think that punchlines need to be the best gag of the lot. And so ideally each gag gets funnier and funnier, and then you get to the best gag and then you stop it.
Yeah.
And although you've got the repeated idea of no news happening, I think, although I know you've deliberately structured it, certainly in the draft that I read, to be like a news program.
Yeah.
It might be an idea to, instead of it being so stuck within those parameters. We had that when Mike wanted to do a, what was it called, Dragon's Den,
Yeah.
and he was so insistent that it fitted in within the format of the show, and I'm like, well, don't worry about that sort of thing, go where the jokes are. And I'm thinking you could have done more and more things that clearly something must have happened, and I don't know what that would have been, but gone to more and more, like, I don't know, time. Someone's checking the time. No, time has stopped. Or it's something where we've gone to a river and it's frozen over. Anything where movement and change has to happen, and you can just build that up to being more and more ridiculous.
Yeah. What I'm curious about, this business about the internet not being paid for and the information not flowing into the studio, was that a target that you were going for? Were you making some comment about BBC funding and so on? And in the second draft, like I said, this weather presenter is worried about, like, maybe they're going to be included in the cutbacks or something like that. So you're making this comment about 24-hour news, passing comment about when there's no news. Were you also targeting cutbacks?
I was.
Or was it convenient?
No, I was targeting cutbacks, but I don't know a great deal about I know what exact sectors of the BBC or even indeed any news media are actually having cutbacks.
Yeah.
But I know if it were to be, if it were to be the internet supply in the business's office, then that would be one of the most ludicrous choices for a cutback, I would think.
But I do think, and I'm going to bring it up as I often do, the same things. If you're going to write a sketch about a thing, or even if you imply a thing, research everything. Just get to know absolutely everything about a subject so that you can work it in. And if people ask, is it about this? Yes, I know all about that sort of thing. But yeah, I think if you're going to mention anything, really do know your subject. The other thing, I guess, that also brings up with me is what's at stake. So what if this company, there's no news happening? Are these characters under pressure to deliver? Is there something like, oh my God, my boss is going to kill me, we've not managed to make a news programme? So in order to escalate, you can always put things at stake, the consequences of the fact that there are no news. To me, yeah, okay, I'm curious to know where it goes, but I don't feel any pressure from a character or anything like that to make them think that this is a bad thing. And I mean, I haven't seen the latest version. Maybe you've turned it into a new situation. But these are the sort of thoughts that go through my head. When you're working on a sketch, there are several things that are common. And that is, you get a character and you put them under pressure in some way or another. There is something that they want and they're not getting it, and they've got to somehow resolve the situation. To see what I mean? So you could have gone, it could have built this up a bit more with more at stake and a clearer punchline, which links to this idea of, no news. Why is there no news? And there was obviously two options. One is that there is news and you're not getting it, which is the one you went with. Or the other alternative is, no, literally the world has stopped for some reason. And that's my personal inclination, is to go down the second route because you can get more laughs out of it. I mean, aliens come down and froze the planet or something. I don't know.
Mitchell and Webb have done that.
So Mitchell and Webb have done a similar no news sketch. Is that what you're saying?
Well, not exactly no news, but they do have a sketch in their in the TV version of their show where aliens have taken over and they have to cut their news coverage at that point to say aliens have taken over Earth, so we are now going to stop the broadcast. But if you'd like to see us being incinerated, then tune in with the red button now.
There we go.
So,
yeah, I would like to point out that these guys know what they're doing. So aliens clearly is a good punchline. I've done it on a couple of mine, I think. Did I not write aliens?
We've written aliens. Yeah. And there's they've got the other one about the event, and we don't talk about the event or after the event.
Oh, the game show one.
No, it's just like this mysterious thing that has happened.
The event,
like this apocalyptic moment. Yeah,
there is a TV show called The Event. Yeah. Which is apocalyptic similarly, and something weird.
They must have been inspired
I think
by
they must have been. It's either that or the other way around, and they wrote this big epic drama all about a Mitchell and Webb sketch. I think I'd prefer that.
So, on the subject of the event and apocalyptic events, do you want to sort of tease ahead to the final draft? What Phil hasn't read yet
or heard?
Well, the final version of this sketch, and I altered the payoff. to be that really there is news going on, and really some very, very terrifying news going on, but nobody wants to cause a mass panic across the across the country.
I like that.
Yeah.
Before you say, I don't want to get spoiled. Can we play the sketch?
Do you want to listen to it?
I want to hear the sketch.
Okay.
Hello, and welcome to News 24, the 24-hour news network service that is broadcast live to you.
Back to you with the local news.
Just keep talking and focus. We can't let anyone know how bad it is out there. Do your job.
Well, now we can all take a nice sigh of relief, and the memory of all the people who have not died today will be holding a 23-hour silence.
Robbie, have you got any thoughts following hearing that? I'm glad you liked
God. Oh, I missed that one. Sorry, what did you say?
it. Any thoughts upon hearing the sketch? How did you enjoy it?
I rather enjoyed that. So I think that the delivery was a little bit sort of stilted, like pronouncing the ers as ah each time. But that's the way it should have sounded. But I rather enjoyed the sort of slightly panicky voices that they have. I liked that each scenario was taken to, about as far as it could go. Maybe there were a few bits that could have been trimmed down, like the guy who's being interviewed in the pub. Maybe that could be one line shorter. I'm still really pleased with the name Antonio Salsaverde as a footballer.
Yeah.
But
I think he's
in
my
fact,
favourite.
I'd
He's
take
your
out
favourite
his
character.
last line as well, I think. But overall, I was rather pleased with that.
Stuff. Can I just check on the ers? Is that a commentary on this particularly BBC tendency that I've noticed? They really do drop into almost any sentence.
Did they really?
Was that where you were going with that?
It wasn't where I was going with that.
Okay.
I don't particularly associate the BBC with that as much as just people in general.
Okay.
I think that people tend to speak faster than they think quite a lot these days, so the ers are just a natural byproduct of that.
Okay, interesting.
I do have notes on this one. So the way that you explained it to me, again, listening to the sketch, I didn't quite grasp from what I heard as much as how you explained it to me. And also, while I was listening to it, I thought maybe the comedy would be that the audience knew this all along, and we're watching people struggle to do their job in extreme circumstances. Whereas the way it plays out, it's sort of structurally a bit weird. I don't know if it's better if the news organisation don't know at the beginning that there is no news and they are struggling to go, oh gosh, there's no news, we better do something about this. But that's not what you wanted to do. Okay, so you wanted to create a situation where they know there's no news, but then they tell everybody there's no news at the beginning. And I'm thinking, well, we've kind of, okay, so I'm not quite sure which...
But I've got a different reading.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's something really, really, really bad has happened and they're not talking about it.
Yeah, no, I would like that, but the audience don't know. I really like that idea. It's really
Maybe
subtle.
Robbie can clear it up for us.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's more that there's, every subject is about as bad as it could possibly be, and they don't want to start a panic. Yeah. So even with the weather presenter, that could be alluding to climate change. And things are getting so bad that everyone's going to have a heat death. But of course, we don't want to tell everyone that they're going to die of heat death, or I know everyone's going to die in a much more violent manner and much sooner.
I think the issue there is you've got characters who don't want to talk about things, but the audience need to know what those things are that they're not supposed to talk about. And I'm not sure that is made clear from the audience perspective. I'm sure it is in there if you know to look for it. But I just, from hearing the sketch, I don't know if that's made... Maybe I'm thick. There is always that possibility. But then sometimes you have to assume the audience are idiots, because I think we've talked about this before as well, that, confusion is a killer of comedy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who says that?
James Carey.
Here we go. And I was confused. So I was struggling a bit. And the fact that when you introduced it, that helped. But of course the audience aren't going to get that introduction. So I would have liked a clearer setup, which is there's something obvious, awful has happened. You drop it in some subtle way or something. Gosh, there's a meteor or something, and we're all going to die. Shh, we can't talk. We're now going to go into a news program, and they've got to talk about everything. And then every now and again, the subject somehow comes up to talking about this imminent death, and somehow they've got to drag it back. You know, and don't ask me how, but you know, and then you go to. They go to extreme lengths to try to avoid talking to people who would have anything to do with that, and somehow it still ends up talking about, and they just see what I mean? So the idea of not talking about a thing, but the audience still need to know what is the subject that they're avoiding, and I wasn't made obvious. It wasn't made obvious to me from what I could hear. Can that last line be played back? Because I didn't catch it. Just so that's where the punchline is. The reveal is in the last line, right? Have I understood that correctly? Yeah, okay. So, and now we can all take a sigh of relief, and in memory of all the people who have not died today, we'll be holding a 23-hour silence. And it just, for me, comes out of nowhere. And I'm like, what? I understand that's... I think it might be a bit too subtle. I know it sounds odd to say that 23, you're going to hold... I don't understand why lots of people suddenly died. Out of if it's been seeded in,
there's the prior line as well. We can't let anyone know how bad it is.
It's out there, yeah. But that's very vague. It doesn't specify what's happened.
Yeah.
And then there's lots of people have died, and we don't know quite what of. And I think maybe it would be better if we could get a little bit more clarity on that.
Can we just, while we're here, can we just read this last action line as well?
Oh, yeah.
So after that line from the newsreader, we've got newsreader sits perfectly still with a solemn facial expression, momentarily opens one eye at the camera and closes it again.
Yes. What is that about?
Oh, to see if the recording signal has come off on the camera. So I was trying to see if he can stop the solemn face yet.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
So it's a visual gag.
Right. I didn't even get the visual gag when it was explained to me. Right.
Damn, this is why I converted it into a visual script as well.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read that, so to be fair. But those sorts of things where you've described physical action, I think that though it can translate to an actor doing a thing, some kind of explanation as to what they're trying to achieve, I don't understand what that I didn't understand that that's what they were doing. If they're pretending to be solemn, why are they pretending to be solemn, and why have they got to wait until the show is over to stop being solemn? Are they not solemn? In which case, then, have we got a character here who doesn't feel bad about this death and is enjoying the situation, but has got to pretend to not be? And then we've got a comedy character there who's utterly ridiculous. But I didn't... Do you see what I mean? And that's just from an opening and a closing of an eye, and you can extrapolate that and build that into a character. This is a visual script. Having heard it, is there anything that you think is fundamentally missing from the audio radio version that the visual version includes?
I don't think there is anything in particular missing from it. In fact, to be totally honest, I think I prefer the earlier radio version, or the version that was recorded by your cast anyway.
Yeah.
But
that is that script, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You just took out all of the visual
Well, I
stuff.
wanted to... this was one of the things I wanted to get to, was where were you coming from with converting it to visual? Was that something that you just wanted to do as a writing exercise, or...?
It was through a contact I made at the London Comedy Writers Group, where I know because me and a couple of friends from that group have started doing some sketches on stage, and I know there's a chap who has approached us about doing some sketches that could be filmed. And so I don't think that this sketch would particularly work on stage. I'm not sure how we'd stage it with our resources at present.
Yeah.
So I know if this were to be made into a visual thing, then I think that would give our contact something to work with, because then largely a lot of these characters would be appearing on green screen, except for the character who's at the pub.
Yeah.
And Yeah. Also, going forward with this, because I definitely don't want to leave audiences confused at all. Because I know when I do a first draft of something, I tend to try to include as many jokes as I can, regardless of whether or not they're in keeping with the tone or the style of the sketch, and that. So I know once the first one gets heard, perhaps at London Comedy Writers Group, then I pick up on what people are attaching to the most, and then try and get rid of the surplus after that. I definitely don't want to confuse audiences, but it also clashes with, I know, a good quote that I heard. Someone was speaking about Monty Python and saying that I know they would deliberately not spell out the content of their sketches, because I know that in itself is a gesture of respect to the audience.
Yeah.
Because I know they're saying that we trust that you're going to understand this joke and you don't need us to hold your hand through it. But at the same time, if there are certain flaws in the script to begin with, I know then you are effectively digging yourself a hole, because I firmly do not believe in blaming the audience when the audience don't laugh.
Yeah.
Good point.
I think the thing, comparing it to something like Monty Python, those guys are, the masters of what they do. But it is a very difficult art to get that balance between how much information do I include in the script and how much do I assume the audience will understand. And that's knowing your audience and who is this you're aiming it at. And maybe I'm not the audience. Then that goes back to the DM's audience and the reason why it wasn't. I mean, this version obviously was never sent, but it's when you submit a script to DMs, it's very important to understand the Radio 4 audience and also the audience that DMs are trying to appeal to.
I've got a note on this. I think what really comes across, is like your style and your voice, your tone of voice. And it's really interesting. We've been getting a lot of sketches coming in from different writers, and they're also, you get different writers' tones. And there's just something about your delivery that really kind of comes across. It's a very like Robbie
I don't know what you mean.
In a way. But I do wonder if that is not necessarily a DM's style. Do you know what I mean? It's very conversational, and a lot of the laughs, they're not set up and punchline. It's just these strange little turns of phrase and that sort of thing. But
I suppose that you're a performer as well, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah, and I think that shows in the way that you write stuff in a way that you want it to be performed, as in if you were performing it, how you would perform it.
That's very true, yeah. I often sort of think about, if I were the character saying this, how would I want to say it? How do I want it to sound?
Yeah, and if you're writing a sketch that is good for your voice, but not necessarily open to other interpretations, that might, people might struggle with that because you've got a particular way that you go about delivering things and how you are as a person. And although, when you get famous people who write, like Mitchell and Webb, they write for themselves to perform, and Monty Python are the same. So they can get away with being a little bit more because they will pour their own personality through the performance and suddenly the sketch will land. When you're submitting to something like DMs, it's not going to be your voice performing it. And so you need to really make it easy for the actors to understand the character's motivation and the objectives and all those sorts of technical, analytical things, so that without your own personality in the performance, it still lands as a sketch.
But I feel like Robbie's done that. I think what I've been really struck by is Robbie did a read through of the first draft, and then obviously that cast has performed that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of the cast didn't hear your read through. There's a lot of similarities, like what you've put, and there might be some parentheticals in there, are there? So you haven't needed to rely on that, but it's come across like your tone of.
That's amazing.
The only note you gave after listening to it there was just the ers maybe didn't come across, but generally everything else. Did you feel like it was being articulated as you heard it, more or less?
More or less, yeah. There are a couple of lines that in hindsight, I would now cut out of it. But
but in terms of the delivery, the performers were like on the same page as you. I think that's really impressive.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these lines are long.
Yeah, I can see.
Like, fair play.
Yeah, no, that's very impressive. I think also you've just noted something that I've said before as well, is that if you get people to perform the sketch, it doesn't have to be recorded in a studio and all the technical wizardry that Luke here does, but just getting your mates to perform it, you can suddenly hear the things that can land better.
Yeah.
And obviously you've just heard it back and you've gone, oh yes, I'm going to adjust that. It's a really easy fix for writers to be able to just adjust the work, especially when it's performed, sort of written in your head for you to perform, or at least how you perceive it to be performed. And if you suddenly hear it coming out of somebody else's mouth and it sounds a bit odd, and you'll go, oh, that's because it should be said like this. But in which case, then the script needs to somehow indicate that, which is obviously what you've managed to do here. But even so, you still want to be able to trim stuff down. I'm just talking about the TV version as well. One thing I noted on this is if you've reformatted it for TV or for visual medium, and it doesn't actually gain anything to the sketch, it probably doesn't need to be a visual sketch. If it's, unless it's got visual gags that are essential for it to work, then make life easier and just write yourself it as it. And I think that's one of the things you said earlier, is that you preferred it to be. You preferred the audio version, yeah. Which presumably then, when you go to do a new version of this, you will then revert back to the audio format.
I am thinking so, yeah.
I think, just to build on that, I think one of my notes is that I don't think the escalation with the floor manager being introduced and saying, look, we can't tell people how bad it is, I don't feel like that came across in audio. It's reading the script, it's clear that it would come across far more obviously in video. So, yeah, I mean, based on... Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, that's why I think that line should be right at the beginning, because they can do that pre-show and go, don't tell them about the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. And then you get the theme music, because then we've established the fact that person is not part of the setup.
Yeah, they come out of the left field.
Yeah.
It's the only line of that character. Yeah.
But yeah, I just think it's very interesting that you just by rewriting a sketch and then giving it a performance and then hearing it and realizing that there are elements in this that it just what I'm trying to say is that I think sketches will lean towards a particular medium. And if this joke is, and certain jokes will work on audio and radio, some jokes are more visual. And I always think that just lean into that as much as possible and make it deliberately, this is a radio sketch. Whereas this version, as I think you made clear, is actually a radio sketch, but you've somehow written it for the visual medium and it doesn't quite land. And I think that emphasizes my point, is that whenever you're writing, you should always be aware of the medium that you're writing in, and try to make the most of that medium and so the heat death of the universe or whatever it is, just the most extreme things, because you can do it on radio because it doesn't cost anything. Whereas if this was a visual thing and suddenly we've got to explain that there's some really big apocalyptic thing, suddenly you have a shot of maybe they open the studio door and a nuclear bomb has dropped, and that would work as a visual joke. Yeah. It'd be really expensive, but then you'd be able to explain the gag.
Robbie, have you got any thoughts? Is there anything that's going through your mind in terms of what you might do next with this?
Well, before I say that, I'll say I know it's quite pleasing to talk about this subject, particularly in what works in a visual and what works in an audio capacity, because this doesn't really get discussed much in the sort of the groups that I tend to be with. There are certain professional comedians that I've heard do the same material in the radio version of their show and the televised version of their show, like the Mitchell and Webb Look and also the League of Gentlemen as well. But let's see. Going forward, I certainly would like to try having it with the floor manager's sort of panicky warning being done right at the start. And I think I would prefer to keep it to the radio format, but honestly I would be open to doing it visually if it were to be done as sort of like one of those TikTok videos. That's one bit of advice that I'm consistently getting from people, is that I need to be on TikTok in order to get noticed, and I've never used TikTok before, so my motivation is weak at best. But at least with the characters, I know newsreaders in that situation, they can have that sort of that profile view of them, and then going back and forth between each of the characters. That at least could work.
Yeah.
I do think that the radio version is a stronger way of doing it, but I know if we are going to try and launch ourselves as professionals, then we need to also establish flexibility in how we work.
I suppose I'm going to give one note on that one, is that don't try to force a sketch into a medium that it doesn't naturally belong to. And although you could probably do this on TikTok, if the strongest way of delivering this is on radio, do it as a radio version, and then if you want to do a TikTok on a similar theme, then great, then do a visual one. But I think it would be a very different script because you've got that visual element. But I mean, you could do it on TikTok. It would just need to be a lot shorter.
Yeah.
And you could have it as a series of little mini sketches with each one going, like, so you have the pub and then you have the weather, and each of these could be a multiple parts of an ongoing sketch. And then each of those parts will have the punchline of, we're still trying to not talk about something, and then eventually that builds to but I do think we need to find out what that something is, even if the something is something really stupid. But I think setting up the fact that they're not talking about something does need to be made clearer, but also not talking about something and there being no news. I'm struggling to see the link now I think about it. That seems to me two separate things. You've got a sketch about not wanting to talk about a thing, and situation arises where it seems to be just keep happening. And then there is a sketch where people want to talk about news, but there is no news to talk about. And this, arguably,
maybe they're two different sketches.
It seems to me like two different sketches, and arguably almost two opposite sketches. They want to talk about something and they can't, and they can't.
There's something they should talk about and they won't.
Exactly. So I do think that maybe you've stumbled across an alternative sketch, which may or may not be better than the first one. But I think it might work better if you separate out those two ideas and keep it to one idea per sketch, and really explore that singular idea. Because ultimately a sketch is meant to be something quite simple, and it's just an idea given a bit of a thorough examination, and stretched to ludicrous, and that's basically it. But if you then start putting more than one idea in, it can confuse, and then we come back to the confusion is the killer of comedy. What has happened? What can you tell me? What the mystery is?
What was the event?
What is the event? Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Fantastic.
But what roughly is it? Just something that's caused lots of people to die?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know, it could be the outbreak of nuclear war or something.
It's the most extreme thing that you can think of. So I think that you could have had a punchline that reveals what you should have mentioned at the beginning or something, or implied it, and then the payoff is that it isn't that. We know what I mean. Everyone, the audience is given the impression that there's nuclear thing. Actually, no, Arsenal just didn't win the cup, or something really uneventful.
Could be alluded to with in a different way to the floor manager saying it. Say if starts off with BBC News intro, hello and welcome to the evening news, and then there's the sound of an explosion in the background, cut to static, and then it starts over again. Hello, welcome to BBC News. This is very. There is no news today.
Yeah. Exactly. And then you've got, then the audience understand a bit more about, we've got a situation here. But then, of course, you've got to resolve that situation. Yes, you have the repeated thing of, we're trying to do the job, okay? And you go through the different departments, and the weather and the sport and stuff. But then something's got to happen to finish it, and that's quite difficult. But
that's the hardest part.
That is
Let's
hard.
be honest.
If you've dropped a nuclear bomb in the first page, how do you undo that? I don't know. But that's the chat. Nobody said being a writer was easy.
No.
I think the easiest solution is that you don't drop the nuclear bomb. Something has happened, and then you reveal that it, and you strongly imply that it's a nuclear bomb, but it's something completely pathetic instead.
Yeah, maybe the news that they're trying to cover up is that the latest celebrity has been cancelled over sexual misconduct, but it actually is the news reporting team. All of them are going to be wiped out at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
but they're live on air.
That's what you can do if you just really push and pull these ideas and see where you can go with it. I do think that people often write sketches, and I'm not saying this is one of them, but it's their first idea. Keep pushing that idea and see where you can go and make it into your best idea. Don't just settle for the first one that comes in your head. You start writing, and then you go, yep, that's finished now, I'll move on. But interrogate it, give it a good, see where else you can go with it, and suddenly you might pull out something that you hadn't even expected.
Robbie, do you just want to tell us a little bit about your influences, your style, your process, that sort of thing? How do you approach writing?
How do I approach it? So influences... I consider myself to have quite eclectic tastes, really, because I like the madcap daftness of something like Monty Python's Flying Circus, but I also really enjoy the sort of visceral satires of like Armando Iannucci. Like The Thick of It, seasons 3 and 4 is just about as perfect as television gets. I think it's very. I think the toughest bit is getting the initial idea, but I have noticed that the ideas can spring on you at virtually any time. So I know if you. Once you've got the initial idea, just keep it in your head for a few weeks, preferably a month, and there's little details slowly start to add up. You consider certain things, and you think, actually, no, that doesn't quite work. That actually does work, so I want to keep that. And then by the time that you arrange yourself a few hours block to start writing on it, and if you have a good sort of brainstorm's worth of ideas, then that's what you need to start with. Because I've heard some writers talk about they start writing with a blank page in front of them, and I find that never helps.
Yeah.
No.
So you got to you can have say the blank page on your laptop, but you need to have the little book of scribbles next to you.
Yeah.
I know that when we've worked on sketches together, it would be a case of, okay, we've got a subject. What does that relate to? And we'll do almost like not a spider diagram, but something like that.
It's like word association.
Yeah, word association. And then from that, we'll sort of see where we can go with it. And what are the sort of even random things. We did a little list and stuff, didn't we? Of all the words and all the thoughts that connect to that particular theme. But then you take one of those, and it doesn't matter really which one, because you'll just give it a push, see where it goes, and then I think you learn through the writing process of, okay, this may not be working, but then what would make it work? So I guess what you were saying about your process is similarly, if you've got an idea, don't be worrying about it not being a good idea. Any idea is a good idea if you push it hard enough. And you just see where it goes and see how it evolves.
So I'll add one more thing to do with the writing process, because I managed to have, sort of a breakthrough earlier this year, but I gave myself a writer's holiday, because I know I'd heard the phrase before and never fully understood it. I know if you're able to write, then why do you need to do something like that? But I'd been through sort of a stretch of several months where I'd barely gotten anything done. So I did a week's holiday in an Airbnb. And it was within England, so I know it wasn't terribly expensive or anything. But I decided that every day I was going to write as much as possible. I would treat it like it were an actual job. So
that's amazing.
I would get up at 7, write from 8 till 12, go out for lunch, and then write from 2 till 6. And I did that 7 days in a row.
No.
And by the end of it, I had 3 episodes of a sitcom, and 7 sketches, including the last draft of this one.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is absolutely the way to do it. I cannot... I am guilty as anybody for not giving myself time to write. The whole idea of a writer's holiday is genius, but just having that routine of writing between hours and hours. I interviewed J. Michael Straczynski, if means anything to anybody. No, I'm getting blank looks. He did Babylon 5, he did Thor, the movie, he did Sense8. He does lots of big things. He's a big comics writer and all that sort of stuff. But some years ago, I interviewed him, and he was talking to me about his process, and absolutely, he's gets up in the morning and he treats it like a job. And you know what? That's because it is a job. Writing is a job, and if we should treat it as such, and we should respect it as such. But we seem to think, oh no, it's something we do in our spare time, and we can get distracted and all that sort of stuff. I remember when I did my dissertation at university, I had 12,000 words to write. And I was struggling and I was all over the place. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then one day I went, I'm going to decide, if I write 500 words every day, or whatever the maths was, 200 words it might have been, not that many, but I start at 9 o'clock and I write until, but as long as I've reached target, and then I was doing that, and then I would seem to be getting into a routine, and I was writing more and more each day, and then I somehow managed to hit my target. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, I never thought I'd be able to achieve this. And I think it's the same with any writing. If you just say, right, yes, okay, writing the whole thing is too much. Even writing a sketch, 2 pages sounds like a lot, blah, blah, blah. Just give yourself a target that you think you can achieve. 50 words, 10 words. So it does work as a process. It's giving yourself, being rigid, being disciplined. You have to be disciplined to be a writer, I think, if you want to make it into a living. And I would hope that any writers, I mean, yes, you can do it as a hobby, but I don't think it's quite as productive. I think as you've demonstrated, just giving yourself a week and treating it like a job for a week, I'm going to suggest, well, why don't you just do that anyway? I mean, maybe you've got a regular job, but try to...
Oh, I do, yes.
Yeah. I don't. I work in TV. It is very irregular. But the idea of saying I'm going to... I mean, even if calling it a holiday is nice, but it is I'm going to give myself a job of writing, and the reward, the payment is I will end up with a script. That's what Joe Straczynski was saying to me. He said, you've got to write every day.
You just got to show up.
Yeah, you got to show up. And he was saying it's no different to being an athlete when you have to practice every day, even if you've not got a race or anything like that. Just turning up every day, writing every day, getting into the habit of doing it. There's that thing, what's it called? That you write in the morning pages. Yeah. You know the morning pages?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. Do you? Nope. So the morning pages is a practice.
Who's like a free writing thing?
Yes, and basically the idea is that the first thing you do when you wake up is you write for, is it about 15, 20
I think
minutes?
Different people do different
but
things.
Yeah, and the idea is you haven't got something to write. You just get into the practice of writing whatever's in your head, and it's free writing, and you never ever look at it, and you never read it. And it's not to build material, it's just to get your brain used to and comfortable with writing. And it's a very good exercise just to be able to exercise that muscle.
That does remind me a bit of advice I heard. It's not exactly what you're talking about, but a thing that I had heard once was to write down your dreams, to effectively write that straight away after you wake up when it's still somewhat prevalent in there. Because I don't know if this is true, but apparently it helps you to tap into a very creative part of your brain, just being able to remember what your dreams were. And the best way to remember is to write it down the moment you wake up.
If you start writing before the day starts, it's incredibly powerful. We are continually nowadays given a barrage of media all the time. It's 24/7, and it's just kind of noise. If you start writing in that silence before you even have a conversation, it's incredible what comes out. And it's the same way because you're still in tune with that creative part of you that was turning over not that long ago, like I say, producing dreams.
I'd like to move us on. Robbie, how do you cope with rejection?
Not well. Sorry, how do I cope with it?
Yeah, this show is the Reject Pile, and we're going through this cathartic process. We're talking about rejection. We've featured your rejected material. If you get rejected, take some time to figure out why.
Yeah, I think it's a positive thing. I've said before, I think making mistakes is better than success because you get an opportunity to learn. And you make yourself a better person as long as you learn from it. That's the important thing.
Yeah. And
to be outside of your comfort zone a little bit. Doesn't have to be wildly because that can be completely weird. But if it's just a smidge out of your comfort zone and you try something and it doesn't land, okay, that's not. We should be accepting of mistakes. I did a speech at Latitude Festival a couple of years ago. Because I used to run an improv workshop, and one of the things that improv is all about is embracing mistakes and being open to what happens.
Robbie, I think to wrap up, can you just tell people where they can find out more about you, the work you're doing, where can they follow you?
Let's see, there's a little bit of material on YouTube from back when I did stand-up, but the big project from recent years is an 8-episode audio sitcom called Consummate Professionals, which is currently available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Podchaser, and I know a bunch of others. Let's see, that is, 8-episode audio sitcom there. I know it's entirely written by myself. It features a cast of, I think it's about 24 people in total.
Can I just say, it features Alexis Coward, who performed in your sketch.
Oh, brilliant. How is she?
She's grand.
Let's see, Consummate Professionals is the big one. I'm currently working on Neuroses Journal, The Monster Mash, which is based on the horror character I used to do on stage, Neuroses. This is the project that's been deliberately written to be an audio comedy rather than the stage stuff that Neuroses always was before, and that will all be released this October.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Busy.
And if you're in the London area at all, I'm also part of a sketch group called Tuxedo Cat. We're still in the early days as of yet, but we want to try and build up to doing an hour-long show to perhaps do at the Camden Fringe or somewhere nearby and accessible for our first run, and hopefully try and build up to doing a run at Edinburgh in the future.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Where can people follow you and sort of be kept up to date with your news and all these exciting projects?
I've got a Facebook page that's just Robbie Fox Comedian, but I regularly check the Consummate Professionals Facebook page a lot more often than that, so that's probably the most direct place to look.
Okay, that's great. Well, thanks so much for coming on the Reject Pile and sending breaking news in.
Well, thank you very kindly for having me.
It's not a problem. Phil, anything you want to share? Any projects you got in the...
I'm working on various things, none of which I can really talk about. I worked on Things You Should Have Done and We Might Regret This, which are 2 BBC sitcoms. Where can you find me? I'm on the social medias. Zenith Bootleg is me on pretty much everything. But mostly I'm doing kind of stuff behind the scenes and working on my short films. I've got 6 short films I'm currently got in post, plus the film of my play I did last year, none of which have shifted very far in the last few months, but I want to get them out.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thanks so much, guys. Thanks again, Robbie. This has been The Reject Pile. I've been Luke Edwards. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
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 It seems that the regular exchange of money, or for alcohol, or indeed non-alcohol beverages, has gone unaltered, leaving many customers moderately sedated. Leaving many customers moderately satiated. Moderately. Leaving many customers moderately. Why can't I do this every time, isn't it? Moderately. Jeopardy. Should I just say each word separately, just add it, just glue it together?